We're here to honour Martin Wynne, his life and his music. And I want a special welcome to the Uptron of Comhaltas, attractive lady here on my right, Dar Stewart of Comhaltas, Flowers from Morocco. I don't know many councillors here, Thomas Walsh down there, Father James McDonough, and everyone of the locality and of people of travel distance. You're all very welcome. I want a very special welcome to the Wynne family. Most of them are over here on my left hand side. Starting off with Rosemary Cleary Nee Wynne, James Martin Wynne from London, Brendan and Louis from Iverlawn, Sean from Bunnanadden, Helen Higgins Nee Wynne, who has made her way all the way from Canada today. This all came about with a meeting in Dublin, in Mostown, in the head office in Comhaltas, and Berkeley Gavin, Tim Mulcahy and myself were at it, and Laura's here and others, and we were discussing the theme for Congress this year, which was held in Sligo all over the weekend, and we came up with the theme of the diaspora. And from my sins I said, why don't we do something for Martin Wynne? So we're here. So that's the next question was, where are we going to put it? And a few days later I contacted Dermot Gormley, the chairman of the Bunnanadden Park Limited, and they were having a meeting a night or two later, and he was back the next morning. He said, put it anywhere you want in the park. And I can't thank Bunnanadden Park for they have been so helpful to us from the very word go. Nothing was impossible. They have worked with us for everything. We had to take down signs and put up signs, and no matter what we want to do, they said no problem, you can do it. And I want to thank them for all they have done, and we will have catering here later on, and that's at the request of them. They wanted to do something for Martin Wynne as well, so give them a huge hand of applause. Martin Wynne was born over the road, about a mile, in a place called Iverlawn. He had 2 brothers and 3 sisters. Martin grew up in a musical house. His mother was a very good flute player. Martin showed the keenest interest in music from an early age. His first instrument was the melodeon, but he soon moved on to the fiddle. Martin, I believe, got lessons on the fiddle from Philip O'Byrne, Dad O'Byrne's father. He was a frequent visitor to Frank Regan's, Sheila O'Dowd's father, and he was a close friend of her brother Mick. Indeed, there are some lovely memories of Martin and some of his composition in Sheila O'Dowd's book, 4 Generations. This area was, and still is, a great area for traditional music. Some of the best known names in traditional music came from the area. People like Sheila O'Dowd, Niamh Regan, Peter Horton. If you go up the gate and turn left, and keep going to the end of the road and turn left, it's Peter Horton. Fred Finn is just at the end of the road. And we have one special person here today, that's Verona Henry Ryan. Verona Ryan is here today. And it's great to have Verona. Verona sent me a text last week. She said she couldn't make it, and my eyes lit up when she came in here today, because Verona has been a great friend all down the years, and our family has done an awful lot for music, both here and in America. Just over the road from that, you have Michael Coleman, Jim Coleman, Joe Dowd. I could go on and on and on. There's hundreds of names. If you go up to Castle just over the road here, there's a monument there. I'd say, you say 10, there must be 50 or 60 names on it. In fact, there's a name on it and the person is here. But I won't say who it is, but the person is here. And thanks be to God, looking great. Whoever got the information, they got it badly wrong. Further on up the road, there's another memorial to the Polesboro musicians. And as a matter of fact, there's a man, Richie Pickett, from America. I got this tagged to me by Mike Lancaster. He has written a first volume of the history of the music, and it's only in a very small section near Chapelcurry by Loch Polesboro. There's about 30 pages in it. And if you look up Richie Pickett online and download it, it's the best bit of reading you can do for any night, the history of the music. And it's only volume 1 of 3. So hopefully by the time he gets out to here, he'll have the 3rd volume finished. But Martin went to England in 1937 and stayed there until 1939. At the start of the war he came home, returning to London again in 1946, where he played a lot of music with the local man Joe Dowd. I think they played a lot at the time in the Gary Owen in London. The Gary Owen was owned by another local man on the Ballymote side of Bunnanadden. His name was Johnny Muldoon. And as it happens, the last day's work he done in this country was himself and a man called Rob McDermott erected a hay shed for my father, and they signed it. So I know the date he went to England, the 6th to the 7th, 1930. Now the last storm unfortunately blew it away, so it's not around anymore. But it's just a note, that's where Johnny started off. And he owned the Gary Owen and a lot more places in London after that. Martin then immigrated to the United States in 1948. He lived in Jerome Avenue, and the local branch of Comhaltas in Buffalo is named after him. Martin continued to inspire a lot of young musicians. He took great interest in the young fiddle player Brian Conway, who we all know, and his sister Rose Flanagan. Martin was honoured by being president of Flackroll and Heron in Sligo in 1989, where we all had a great memories of listening to him play. I remember sessions in Ballymote, and I remember being in it, and the good one, the chief superintendent in Ballymote happened to be at the session, and the guards looked in a few times, afraid to put it out. But the super went home at 4 o'clock, so we all went home. But Martin was the main person that was in that's why we were all there. He went back after that, and he continued to play his music, and he died on the 6th of January 1998. There's more people going to talk about Martin, and I'm not going to spend any more. There's so much information out there if you look it up on him. He never done any professional recordings, but the snippets coming up on social media, I found an awful lot of stuff in the last couple of weeks since this became kind of known about. The people are scouring and they're putting it up, so it's getting more interesting by the day. Now I would like to introduce Maureen O'Dowd, one of the directors of Bunnanadden Park, to say a few words of welcome.
Gurmaigi Goleras Talfolches Veheroiv and Shah New. Our son Krista Fork and Fubble Dovel Achan Nalak is more an honor agus an privilege dom a vepantak lesh an law suntasach Shah. Marfi an law starur Shah in Aigna an Fubble fa I vad. Fud an Canter Magrud by Quivni Kim Kianula gach dinna an Shah an ver mór ceol Shah Martin Ogahin. Agus muid och animniu I measc an éas ceol tradiisiúnta. Is mór an pleasure doing freshen an ócáid storúil Shah a réachtáil. Agus sinráte inis armadan curigi fáilte criúil rev Uachtarán Comhaltas attractive Roddy, ní Roddy, Úlabas. Ards to for Comhaltas Lauras a Morcu. Muintir ard Corla Comhaltas atá an seo freisin. Onadahi ó Corla Chundachligi agus Shakti Dála Goléir. Ar míle maithí. Anish Iram Sean of Larte, Rooney ó Krista Fork an Fubble de Valina Lac, Lauert Liv. Gur a míle maithí Goléir.
As Secretary of Bunnanadden Community Park, I'd like to welcome you all here today, and we're very honoured to have this memorial at our park. I will leave the commentary on Martin's music to more qualified speakers. But like many of our immigrants, Martin never returned to live back home, but he brought the talents nurtured here in South Sligo to stages all over the world. The Wynne family here have a long association with our park and have volunteered and supported us in so many ways over the years, and welcome to all of them: James, Brendan, Louis, Sean, Rosemary, Helen. And I know Sean and Louis and Brendan through sport, and particularly football, with my fondest memories being Louis bringing Bunnanadden to another level back in the mid-90s when he managed our team and set the foundations for winning a county title later on, and of course Brendan packing 4 or 5 of us into the back of the little brown Mini and bringing us to training all over the country. I'll never forget it as a 15-year-old back in the day. All I hope is that the Wynne family and the broader Irish music family here today see this as a fitting tribute to Martin, and that you enjoy your day and our community park. Thanks very much.
Thanks, Maureen, and thanks, John. Now I'm going to introduce a man who is no stranger to music. He has done an unbelievable amount of research. He's a historian. He's probably one of the best accordion players in the country. And he's over here on my right, Tahi Gormley. He's going to talk about Martin's music. Thank you. And by the way, I also want to congratulate Tahi and Elaine Riley. She's here somewhere. I saw him coming in the care. They got engaged a few weeks ago.
The irony of me standing here as an accordion player isn't lost, but talking about a fiddle player, but I'm nearly building a career out of it now, so we'll keep going. But it's a great, it's a brilliant occasion to be here and to be remembering Martin, one of the great fiddle players that we ever had in Sligo. And even though he's one of our best known fiddle players, he's probably one of our most elusive. He was a very quiet, unassuming man, and that really came across in his music and in his compositions. And Michael was talking about Sheila O'Dowd earlier. Remember Sheila describing Martin playing to me years ago? He said it was like turning on a tap, it just flowed out of him. And that really summed up Martin and his beautiful music. While it was very much rooted in South Sligo, he really had a style of his own. He didn't play like anybody else, but he stayed true to the tradition that he came from. And as Michael said, coming from an area like this, you really couldn't but be good. Philip O'Byrne, Lad O'Byrne's father, the big influence, and also 2 more great fiddle players, Willie and Tom Gannon. And they were supposed to be great players. We have recordings of Tom. Tom recorded a couple of tracks with Michael Coleman in America much later, but they were outstanding fiddle players, and it's no wonder Martin really became the fiddle player he did. And the funny thing about Martin's compositions is he never wrote a single tune in America. He wrote them all in Sligo before he left. And someone asked him in America one time, how come you stopped composing when you left Sligo? He said, sure, what are you composing over here for? It was all done at home. And Martin went to America in 1948, and it was a great sense of regret to him that he missed out on Michael Coleman and James Morrison, who were really idols of his. But he fell into an amazing scene once he went there. He had Lad O'Byrne and Andy McGann, Paddy Reynolds, and he could talk about all the names that were there, and he flowed right in. Paddy Killorn as well, and there was a great interview. I was looking up a few bits about Martin during the week, and I came across an interview that Ciarán McMahon had done in 1962 for the American Journey Rock programme. And Ciarán says to Paddy, you must be the last of the great Sligo fiddle players left in America. And all Paddy said was, have you heard Martin Wynne? And that summed it all up. So it's a great occasion to be here today. The test of any composer is how their tunes are received by the Irish music community. And I think we'd all agree if we go to a session between Bunnanadden and Timbuktu, and you're probably going to hear one of Martin Wynne's compositions. And that's why we're here today, and that's all we need to know. So thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Tahi. I've just gotten a note here. I believe there's a nephew or a great-grandnephew of Lad O'Byrne in the room with us, so we're very, very welcome. would now like to introduce Helen Higgins, nee Wynne, Marvin's niece, who came all the way from Canada to be with us here today. Give Helen a big hand.
Well, it's a great honour that I was asked to speak on behalf of the family today about our beloved uncle, the gifted fiddle player, composer and teacher. I'm going to continue to have a little bit of a background too on him. Martin was born in 1913, the second youngest of 8 children. Just a short distance, literally across the fields over there, you can see the farm from here. So it's very fitting that it's here that we are today. The townland was called Everlawn. He grew up in difficult times. You can imagine a First World War, this 1916 rebellion, a civil war, and the birth of a new Ireland. Our grandmother Ellen was a concertina player, and Martin displayed a natural music talent from a very young age. Unfortunately, our grandfather James was not a big supporter of music when there was work to be done on the farm. So according to my Aunt Bridget, I had the privilege of being in Canada, and she was a short distance, lived down in Buffalo, and I went to see her often, and she often talked about Martin. And she talked about him, he would often slip away down into the bog and just play the music. Because he didn't feel he could do it in the house if there was work to be done. Martin excelled in school. This was another little story that Bridget told me. He excelled in school, and his teacher in 7th class recognised his brilliance and even approached the grandparents to encourage him to go on to education beyond primary school. However, that didn't happen, and he didn't attend any. His formal education ended in primary school. In the 1930s, Martin began composing music, creating 6 reels in total. The reels 1 to 3 are renowned worldwide. He moved to London in the mid-30s and played in the Gary O'Kelly band, performing in dance halls owned by the local businessman Johnny Muldoon. And as World War loomed, he decided he was going to come back to Everlawn. In 1948, when he was only 35, you think it's like he was an older man, but he was only 35 when he immigrated to New York, where all of his family had immigrated before him, brothers and sisters, so his brother and sisters had gone before him. And that's where he made his home for the rest of his life, working his last years with the US Postal Service. Martin used to say in his own witty way that he was born 3 years after Michael Coleman immigrated to New York, and Michael Coleman had died 3 years before he immigrated to New York. So it was one of his big regrets that he never actually got to meet him. Martin did buy his 78s of Jim Morrison and Michael Coleman, and the story is that he would analyse that playing, the styles of them, even though he didn't get to meet them. Morrison, Coleman and Killorn were the prominent favourites of Martin, but he regarded the local Jim Ladd-O'Byrne as one of the greatest of all time. Martin worked with a man called Jim Conway, a Tyrone fiddle player in New York. He too was a recent immigrant, and they would meet up on Wednesdays and go to Jim Ladd-O'Byrne's for music sessions. It is known by our relatives in New York that Martin also tried other instruments. He was a gifted that he could play anything he wanted to play, put his mind to play. In the 1970s, Jim Conway asked Martin to take his son Brian under his wing and tutor him. Brian speaks in glowing terms of Martin's advice and bowing techniques, and not to speed the music when it was being played. Martin did not return to Ireland until 1975, which was the first time our family got to meet him. We had never met him. Not expecting to be remembered, Martin did not even bring a fiddle with him, hoping for a nice quiet visit. But, however, our father, Jim, in his excitement of his brother coming home, had spread the word everywhere. And the roads of Everlawn was jammed with cars, people eager to play play a tune with him. That was our first glimpse of Martin, that his humble nature. He loved music but never sought the limelight. In an interview, he was once asked about his compositions, and he said, "I'm not a composer." Many fellow fiddle players remember Martin as a true gentleman, humble, polite, a perfectionist of his craft. He embodied Sligo's style of playing and often voiced his dislike for modern trends of excessively fast reels and jigs. Recognition for his music contributions came later in his life. In '89, he was first being honoured as the first honorary president of the Sligo Flacciol. The following year, he was invited to Boston College as one of the 16 top fiddle players for an Ulster concert. In 1995, the Martin Wynne Comhaltas Comhaltas branch was named in his honour. Later in life, sometime after that, he moved in with his sister Bridget in Buffalo. She quickly realised that he was struggling with memory loss, which was more likely due to dementia. Eventually, he moved to a nursing home where my sister Rosemary and I had the privilege of visiting him. But by then, his condition had progressed and he no longer played music. Martin passed away in 1989 in Buffalo at 85. I was deeply honoured to be entrusted with one of Martin's fiddles, which I brought back to Everlong. Unfortunately, Martin did not make commercial recordings, though recordings of Martin are rare. You can search and find all of those uploaded sessions. Some of those sessions, you can find them. You can find recordings of Martin on the Irish Traditional Music Archives. His reels can be seen on YouTube, which is, you just Google him on YouTube or find him on YouTube, and all ages from across the world are playing his music. And that's just ensuring that his contributions is never going to be forgotten. Today the legacy endures, and we are very proud as family to have Martin's great grandnephew Isaac Renault here today. He's aged 10, he's the grandson of Rosemary's, carrying on the tradition. Already talented fiddle player, he represents that next generation that this music is going to stay alive. We as a family want to thank Comhaltas Comhaltas Éireann for this great honour for our Uncle Martin Wynne, and also the Bunnanadden Committee, Park Committee, for organising the venue, for all the organisation of how this all came together and all the refreshments. We thank you so much for this great honour. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Helen. And could I do a bit of thanking now? Could I thank Comhaltas nationally, Laura Morocco and the Arcolia, and the Cycle County Board. We have Tim Mulcahy, the chairman here, and Margaret McConnell, the secretary. Without their financial assistance, we wouldn't be here at all. So thanks again for coming with music. I discovered in the last week or so that there's a lovely recording of Martin Wynne playing at the Fla in 1989, and there's a young girl playing with them, and the caption underneath is, "I wonder who is the young girl." Well, the young girl is with us here today, and it's the Outron of Comhaltas Comhaltas Éireann, the Factor Brady, and what that's Factor say to her.
Díomh Uisir, Arstúrthor, Corleory, Jackie Dahl, and Muintir Comhaltas agus a chord go léir. I came in here a short while ago and I gravitated towards the fiddle. And with it, I met a young gentleman called Isaac. And he kindly allowed me to play a tune on this fiddle. And to say that I am honoured is an understatement. To say that the circle has closed means so much to me as an Offaly woman coming to a hotbed of fiddle players, and to know that from 113 years ago to now, we now have the future fiddle player in our midst. I have a couple of personal stories relevant to the great Martin Wynne, and one of them was I had the pleasure of playing music with him at that All-Ireland in 1989. Unfortunately, there was a recording, as you alluded to. He was in the audience, I was sitting beside other people, and as you said, somebody wanted to know who the young one was. Well, I'm still young. So who is she? Anyway, that time it was a pleasure to meet him, and the comments that Dahi made earlier on about him being quiet and unassuming were absolutely accurate. The man had no airs and graces whatsoever. He played his music quietly, and he'd sit with his shoulders slightly hunched over and one leg over the other, with his head slightly bent, listening to the music. And that is a sign of somebody who is a pure appreciator of the culture that is around him. He was soaking it in. That is a great memory for me. Another one, and this links my father, who was a composer, John Brady, to Martin Wynne. The first year that my father brought his band, the Longridge Gaelic Band, to play in the All-Ireland Fleadh in Ennis, they won the competition and they played Martin Wynne's number 2. They added in John Brady's reel. So they were the 2 reels that the Longridge played in 1977 to win the All-Ireland. And at the time, I was that young one. And the name Martin Wynne was like, as you say, Michael Coleman, Ladeburn. These were all names that were flying around in my head. As a child, I had no major appreciation, but I do remember my father telling me, remember these people, they were great men. And if I can say anything to the young people here today, it's that same message. Just remember these old people, because you, young people, as the future of our culture, will bring this information from us who are the middle men and women right now. We are handing on that, because we all have that responsibility to hand it on. If it wasn't for the likes of the local committee here and all the hard work that goes on in the areas such as South Sligo, we wouldn't have all the information that we have, and we owe them a huge debt of gratitude. Helen said something a few minutes ago. She said that Martin Wynne said to Brian Conway, who I played with as well, and he's a fine fiddle player, and so is Rose, said, don't rush the tune. And I think that that is a little lesson for life as well. If you think about it, if you rush the tune, you get to the end too quick. And if we take that and we look at life, we've got to enjoy the journey of life. Forget about getting to the end, we will all get there. If we enjoy the tune, take our time, don't bother looking towards the end of it, but enjoy the journey. So on that note, I'm going to play Martin Wynne's number 2, just once over. If you'll indulge me with this piece of history in my hand. I was about 10 when I learnt this. What age are you, Isaac? What age are you? You're 10.
How do you follow that? Our next speaker needs no introduction. He's a legend in traditional music, what he has done for music all down the years, and that's a great friend here on my right hand side. Dar Stewart of Comhaltas Culture and Laura Summerco.
On Comhaltas a bhain Martin Wynne agus a bhain mór ceoltóirí an cheantar seo agus gach aine bhfuil sim dá leid acu I gcultúr na hÉireann. Im háirimse níl éon cócht níos láidre ná spread an phobal áitiúil. Agus tá sé sin thar bheith sa léir an seo inómh. Mollam sibh go léir tuisgur bhfuil sibh ag agrú na hócáide seo agus go an fáilte speisialta rib na tachtaí dála, na cóirlóirí agus an sagatharún a eicem an seo inómh freisin. I've often felt that when you come to a rural setting like we have here today, you can understand why much of the creativity of life grows from that particular setting. You're inspired by everything you see, by the fields and the trees and the singing of the birds. So when we come here today to remember Martin Wynne, we try to visualize his journey through life, living in this area, and Michael has outlined so well the significance of this area in the context of Irish music. And when that young person left the shores of Ireland to go, as they say, to the shores of America, I always wanted to get down to the heart of what that meant, because it was much more than music. In 1968, I was elected Uachtaráin of Comhaltas, and in 1969, there was a very illustrious group of musicians travelling to America at that time. And Una and myself were invited to go along and look at setting up branches of Comhaltas throughout America. We were there for 4 weeks, but there was a musician among that group, Paddy O'Brien, an outstanding accordion player, an iconic figure indeed in many ways. And he introduced me to all the great musicians right throughout America, because we went right throughout America at the time. And I brought home something that inspired me for the rest of my life, and that was what one's culture and music can do in the country of your adoption. Try to think of people who went to America, certainly post-famine. We've read so many books about that, and it wasn't in any way as glorious as one might think. It was a very challenging time. So whether you went in the 30s or the 40s, not an awful lot had changed at that time. And you had to make your mark some way. And the music perhaps was one of the most potent weapons, if I can use that word, at your disposal. Because, number one, it gave them a sense of identity. It brought cohesion among them. The Jews and the Germans and all those had been exceptionally good in America at doing that. But the music was something which linked them together, and it also gave them a great sense of confidence. So when Martin Wynne or any of the other illustrious musicians would have played music, people would have stopped. I mean, non-Irish would have stopped to listen, because they would realize it was special, it was exceptional, and it was a mark of one of the foremost nations in the world, and certainly one of the oldest civilizations. You may not be aware, there's a book written on how the Irish saved civilization. I'm not going to give you a lecture, but that is true. That is true. When the missioners and the monks travelled from Ireland at a time when Europe in particular was absolutely fragmented and perhaps no particular focus, it was the Irish who brought it. So the music was doing exactly the same. And because they came from a community that gave them that confidence, and because they had the talent, they started to organise among themselves. And they were playing in some of the biggest dance halls of the world. So it was the music to a large degree that made the people in the country of their adoption stand and assess these people. And it certainly was a huge, huge boast to us. So when Michael Brennan and the County Board and Tim Mulcahy and all the others decided on honouring Martin Wynne here today, I felt how lucky I was back in those days to meet them, musicians while they were still alive. But at that eventful fla in Sligo in 1989, like has already been mentioned, meeting Martin at that time, very quiet demeanour and very welcoming. But the music world, the musicians were there gravitating towards him. And that was the power that was in America when they were there as well. And you know, sometimes in Ireland, we were slower in Ireland than they were in America in recognizing this talent and this excellence, in this creativity which no other country could claim at the time. We were quite slow in doing it. So when Comhaltas was founded in 1951, it was at a time in Ireland when traditional music was at a very, very low ebb. It was only a short time after the War of Independence, and there was a mass exodus out of Ireland, again bringing talent with it to America at that time. But we were at a situation where it was touch and go what the future of that music might be. But the founders of Comhaltas were surprised that when the first flagpole was held, large numbers turned up, which suggested that there was a hunger within us as a people for expression, and the music was that hunger. And if you look today, and you talk about Martin Wynne and the other great musicians of Sligo, how proud they are and would have been to be at the Fla in Wexford. So where we didn't give attention to the music in the earlier years, 650,000 people turned up in Wexford for the flagpole. It wouldn't have happened, only the musicians in America recorded their music, put it on the 78s and sent it back to Ireland. When a 78 record would arrive back, it was like Micheál O'Hare doing the hurling commentaries, one radio in the village and the windows open and the neighbours would come and listen at that time. Very same with the record. Not everybody had a gramophone at that stage. And the word would spread. We have a new tune back from America. That was the role that was played. And because it was coming from the greatest country, the greatest power in the world, it made a huge impact. I was just thinking as I came in here, first of all, the ingenuity of getting permission to take a site here to put up the monument. Well done. But what I would love to see happening, and I think it could happen, say if a branch of Comhaltas decided we'll come to this location once a year, and you can decide what date Martin was born, or maybe what date he left Ireland, and choose that date and come here in his memory every year. If this monument, if schools brought out the children and explain who this man is and what he has done for the standing of Ireland, because I know for a fact that if that hadn't happened in America, and if the Irish hadn't got the status they got, Bill Clinton and other American presidents would have no interest in the difficulties of Ireland. But as Dan Mulhall, the former ambassador, was making the point here over the weekend, it was precisely because of what the Irish did, their literature, their music and their culture, that Bill Clinton took a hands-on interest in the difficulties which we had in the North. And there is no doubt he was on the other end of a phone. It wouldn't have happened but for the Martin Wynnes and all the other musicians who made an impact at that particular time. So finally, let's put into context what we're doing. Small village, small community, but it's out of the small villages and the small communities that real positivity came. And if you look at the world today, it's in such a state that we get afraid to turn on radio or television. We wonder, is there any leadership to get back to the quality of life which we all appreciated? And the anchor for that can be the music. I say to the Wynne family today, Goramila Mahagrib, you have every reason to be proud. We owe you a debt of gratitude. The nation owes you a debt of gratitude. And as long as they're not forgotten, there's a very good possibility that they will provide us with an anchor in the future in a world that needs stability. Gorev Rad Day Erin Ober August Lekun of Day will get the opportunity in the future to continue that work where it started down at local level. Keep the community together, keep the quality of life that you've had, and above all else, help the next generation to enjoy that as well. For Mila Margaret.
Thanks very much, Laura. I can't go any further without paying a special word of thanks to Sligo County Board and Tim Mulcahy for the great work they've done, and also to Giblin Stone. You'll see we'll be unveiling the stone in a few minutes, and it's a credit to his craftsmanship. And now I'd ask Tim to bless us all before we go out. Now the last word.
Thanks, Michael. One of the great advantages of speaking last is you have very little to say because it's all been said. So as they were all speaking there, my list was getting shorter and shorter. But there's a few things I would like to say. I lived in the United States for about 10 years, played a bit of music over there, was involved in bands and stuff. And in the course of researching an article for Tror, I got in touch with a number of musicians that I knew, and people who knew Martin very well had played with them and had practiced and done different things, different musical events, so much so that we've actually formed a little group chat. And this morning, Brian Conway, Tony DeMarco, Bill McComiskey were texting me, and a few more as well, wanted to know, were there any photographs, were there any this, were there any that. So I got young Isaac here to stand in front of the podium, and I texted him photoed him holding Martin's fiddle and sent it on to the lads, and they're absolutely made up. The comment that comes back all the time, long overdue, thrilled that it's done. And why people would say, well, Tim, thanks very much. It was the people around me and the people that worked with me in the county board and former county board members, when this project was mentioned, came right up, and they weren't found lacking. I'd like to thank Michael Brennan, particularly, former Vice President of Comhaltas, worked for many years, a neighbour and a great friend, for the help and support he's given me on this particular project, but since my tenure started a few years back as chair of the county board. He's a wonderful man and gives great advice, and I always have a few confidants around that I like to consiglieres, I think was the word they used at the Sopranos, and Michael is one of mine, along with a few more as well. I'd like to thank Lauros personally. Anytime I would ring and expect to get his voicemail or somebody belonging to him, he's back onto me straight away and very approachable. And the number of projects we've done in the last few years and some of the other things that he's supported Sligo County Board with, he's never been found lacking, and always a man as well for a good bit of advice. And he might be in a very lofty position in Comhaltas, and I'll tell you, he knows exactly what's going on around the place, and his finger is on the pulse, and he can relate to all your issues personally as to what you're trying to do, because like myself, he's worked his way up there and he remembers where he came from. Brian Giblin from Giblin Stone, Michael touched on Giblin Stone, was my link man with the stone itself, and I was back and forward, and I have to give my wife a mention here, Bridge. Bridge has reasonably good Irish, but if there was a shebu or a fada or a comma or a H or something, she broke Brian's heart getting the little bit of Irish on the stone correct. She says, that stone will be around long after Ryan and you were here, she says, and she says, it better be right. And she's right, she did, and very grateful to her, because as people would say, they'd see something massive and find some small little mistake, and did you see the stone, and did you see the way that's not going to happen here. Just want to get that across. The Community Park Committee, and the Wynne family particularly here, I'm looking at the lads over here, I got to know them. As I said, I researched a small article, and I learned more about Martin, and the more I learned about him, the more I wanted to know. The communications I had with them, with Brian and Billy in America, were very, very interesting, and gave first-hand accounts of them arriving at sessions and coming in. And as has been said earlier, he was mild-mannered, inoffensive. Billy McComiskey described him as quite the politician, would never say the wrong word, but if you were up close to him, he would often throw his head over and give a little remark about a box player or somebody that wasn't in tune, but no one else would hear it, and he would smile and tell them they were absolutely great, which it says a lot about the measure of the man. He was there, he got what he wanted out of music, and he gave generously to everybody else, but he never wanted the limelight. It was never about records, it was never about big concerts or anything. And I was delighted. Donnie won't appreciate my next comment. When he started on the box, I actually heard a recording, an interview that John Veazey did with him back in the late 70s, and he said that he'd started on the accordion, but he found it a bit limiting, so he decided to go on to the fiddle. No, I'm only kidding. But Martin, when you got him up close and personal, Martin had an opinion on a few things. On behalf of the County Board, I'm delighted to do this project. It starts as an idea, then there's the funding, and there's the whole lot. But I'm looking out here today, and I'm looking at all the people who showed up, local people, the Wynne family, musicians, fiddle players. It makes it all worthwhile, and it'll be here for a long time after a lot of us are gone, and people will remember Martin Wynne. They didn't know him before, they'll know him now, and hopefully it'll start people more curious, gathering up all these snippets of information, maybe doing the book or the major article on him, and his recordings as well might be gathered up. But I just want to say on behalf of the County Board, thanks everybody, thanks for showing up. And just a quick one, Father James, I see sitting down here, our flute playing parish priest from Ballymote, gave me some lovely photographs of his dad and Martin playing together, which I have, Father, in an envelope for you, you'll be getting them back. But the connections all over the place when he was home was great, and he didn't, he wanted to go everywhere, and he wanted to meet as many as possible. Unfortunately, towards the end, it wasn't in a quiet way, because when people found out he was home, there was, as his niece said earlier, there was a queue of people to meet him. So I'm going to leave it at that, and thanks very much.
Thanks very much, Finn. We're almost finished the business in here. I want to give a special welcome to a man that's sitting here in front of me, Willie Fogarty of Comhaltas Live. Willie has done unbelievable work for Comhaltas on recording of music, and anytime you're bored, go online and just look up Comhaltas Live, and you can watch Willie's recordings as long as you feel like looking. There'll be still enough stuff on it. Willie has an unbelievable archive of music, and Willie, it's great to have you here today, and thanks very much for coming. Tim said I was the former vice president of Comhaltas. Well, I can tell you one thing, it's harder to get out of Comhaltas than it is to get into it. I thought I retired 3 or 4 years ago, but I'm still here. We have a member of our branch here, originally from Birmingham. His name is Mike Lancaster. He's a fabulous musician, but he's also a fabulous artist. And I believe, I didn't see it yet, he has done a painting or a drawing of Martin Wynne. And I know he wants to present it, I'm after being informed, to Laura Samorco to display in the Control in Monkstown forevermore. So Mike, you're very welcome. And Laura.
Just as Lange described it, it's one side.